Do you enjoy divesting your enemies of their gear, whether to make them weaker in combat or so you can add it to your own personal collection? Do you like knowing that a fancy sword showing up on the enemy side of the battlefield means you are about to acquire a new fancy piece of gear for yourself? If you answer yes, then this is the video for you. My name is Tom, otherwise known as Titanium Legman, and let's talk about how you can steal most effectively in Final Fantasy Tactics: The Ivalice Chronicles. Hello everyone, if you enjoy what I do, including my ongoing coverage of Final Fantasy Tactics: The Ivalice Chronicles, such as guides about some of the more important and little bit harder to use mechanics in the game, such as steal and thieves, then a like on this video and a subscription to the channel would be very much appreciated. Thank you so much. So yes, today, the name's the game, right? We're talking about steal, we're talking about thieves, we're talking about how you can most efficiently actually get gear off of the opponent using what is seemingly a self-explanatory system, but which can be very difficult to actually use properly due to low hit rates and knowing how to make an enemy susceptible to your grubby little mitts, all that type of fun stuff. We're going to talk about what thieves actually do and how you should be using them, how the steal skill is calculated and how it functions, and then an example of the most optimal way that you can build out a general thief. And we'll talk about why I say general as we get into how the whole system works. So first off, what are thieves and what do they steal? If you're not already aware, thieves are one of the jobs in Final Fantasy Tactics that I refer to as more of a meta job, similar to the mediator / orator or things like that, where you don't really want to be using them in combat. You want to learn their skills and use their skills typically on other types of characters to then get a meta advantage. People will say, of course, yes, you can steal gear off of an opponent to make it so that they can't actually use it against you, and that is fair, but there are other maybe more efficient ways to be able to do things like that. Really, what you're doing is looking at usually a boss enemy or maybe a random enemy that has a higher tier of gear than you can currently buy or something along those lines and saying, I want that, let me have it, and using steal to your advantage with that. There are a couple of combat utility things that thieves are able to do, such as charming opponents, but they're very limited in that regard, and the actual stats and gear choices of the class are fairly poor as well. They're functional while you're using them to get their jobs points up and get their skills unlocked, but once you're at that point, you pretty much want to ollie out of the job as fast as you possibly can. As far as the steal skill itself is concerned, you have multiple different options. Steal Gil, Steal Heart, and Steal XP are not ones that we're really going to be talking about here. They're tangential at best. Sometimes they have some use. What we really care about are the equipment stealing abilities. So Steal Weapon, Shield, Helm, Armor, and Accessory. These are the ones that you're going to be gunning for at first. There's a reason that they're also the most expensive in the list for the most part. And once you have them, you can really start to pick and choose what types of gear you want to be able to snag. It's not unwarranted to always have at least one character in your party that does have the steal skill equipped if you do feel like always being able to grab something if it would be advantageous for you to do so. And now with the changes in the Ivalice Chronicles where you can actually preview random battles, it's even easier to know if you should be bringing a thief along with you or not, because you can look and see what enemies are on the board and what gear they might have. As you learn the game and do successive runs, you'll also kind of get a feel and eventually maybe just straight up memorize what enemies are on what maps for story battles, so you'll kind of know when and where you want to bring a thief for that as well. And I want to be very clear about this. From here on in the guide, whenever I say bring a thief, I don't literally mean the job, but just a character who can steal, who will be fulfilling the role of thief for you. So with the general overview out of the way, how does the steal skill actually work? Because you probably know if you've tried to steal anything before, your odds are generally pretty poor. Very rare to see anything above like 40% if you're not really min-maxing and know how to make the system work in your advantage. So at baseline, the base level calculation for the success rate of a steal is very simple. It is just the percent chance that the skill has attached to it, and then the user's speed gets added onto it, and that's your baseline. There will be modifiers to that based on a lot of other factors, and that's what we're going to talk about here, and will probably constitute the biggest chunk of the video. But that is your base. For example, barring any changes that have been made in the Ivalice Chronicles, and I certainly have not noticed any, I haven't seen any chatter about any either, something like Steal Helmet has a success rate of 40 plus your speed versus Steal Weapon, which has a success rate of 30 plus your speed. So certain pieces of gear will be harder to steal than others, but not by an insane amount or anything like that. So of course, your natural conclusion will probably be, so I want a character that has the highest speed possible with gear that boosts it, leveling in a class that has good speed, maybe give them more speed other ways, and that's how I'm going to get that percent chance up, right? And you're not wrong. That is absolutely a factor. However, there's a lot of other things at play here as well. The big first one is just enemy evasion and what direction they're facing. So like many other skills in the game, whether they be spells, attacks, debuffs, whatever, enemies will have a chance to evade it if they have either just natural evasion due to the facing that they have on you. Head on gives the best evasion, from the side gives a little bit, and from behind gives none, as well as if they have any particular gear that is going to be boosting it, or if they have any skills that's going to be boosting it. And that evade chance is going to directly take off of your steal skill. This technically affects everything in the game, like your basic attacks and stuff, but most of those attacks have a much higher chance of hitting than your steal skills do. So you're less likely to see it in general scenarios and feel it much worse when you are trying to steal. This means that anything that does modify or change evasion will have a major impact on how your steal chance is going to be. Enemies that have shields or cloaks are going to be way harder to actually handle in terms of getting that steal to go through, as well as enemies that have defensive skills like parry or Shira Hidori or any of the like. For those of you who are familiar with trying to steal the Genji armor, a lot of these things will be coming up in your mind right now. Don't worry, we will have a whole video dedicated just to that battle and how to successfully steal the Genji armor sometime after this one goes out. I wanted to do the general guide first. Fortunately, it's not all advantages for the enemy, as you do also have ways that you can manipulate things in your favor as well. We already talked about having high speed. That's definitely a good one. However, skills like attack boost and brawler, coming off of Geomancer and Monk respectively, will also give you a boost to your chance to steal, which is actually really nice, and a lot of people don't realize it. So you definitely want at least one, if not both of those, and we'll talk about that, on a character that is going to be doing the stealing. You then have concentration as another support ability that can help. A lot of people call this one out. Personally, not as big of a fan of that one, but we'll talk about it in a minute here. And then finally, what zodiac alignment you have, much like with pretty much anything else, can negatively or positively impact your ability to steal. So if you know that there's a particular boss or enemy that has a set zodiac sign that you really want to make sure that you can steal from, again, thinking about the Genji armor, this is a big one, then you're going to want to have a character that does have one of the best possible zodiac alignments with that character to increase your chance to actually steal from them. As far as what does not impact success rate, but that I've seen people say before, haste. Haste does not impact the success rate of your stealing because it's not directly modifying your actual speed stat. It's giving you a temporary buff that is increasing your speed, but it doesn't change the speed on your actual character sheet. Kind of like the difference between casting the belief spell on someone to give them a temporary bump to their faith that doesn't actually impact their full score, and once that buff runs out, then they'll just be back to their baseline, whereas actually preaching at them will increase that faith score. It's the same type of thing here. If you're looking to use a skill to boost speed, even temporarily, to be able to make your success rates with stealing better, you're going to be wanting to look at things that Ramza has, like Tailwind, or if you're using him as the thief, Shout, to give yourself or your thief that speed boost to increase their steal rate marginally over time. The other big thing that people seem to get confused about that does not impact your success rate is what job you have equipped. So long as you have the right setup of skills and stats and gear, anyone can be a thief. There will be some jobs that are better at it because of the stats that they have, but it's not an intrinsic trait of any particular job itself that makes it better. A knight that has the exact same stats as a ninja will have the exact same chance to steal if you have them set up the same way and they have the same zodiac sign, all that type of fun stuff. So don't stress too much. If you have a particular type of character that runs a particular job and you just want to have steal on them as a backup so that they can try and actually yoink something for you, cool. Totally fine. Don't need to worry about that whatsoever. I used a knight to steal all of Elmdor's gear to get the Genji gear. Like, you can do whatever, it's fine. Circling back to concentration. Concentration can be a good option to be able to steal from enemies if you are trying to negate their evade bonus. So what concentration does is just that. It completely negates the enemy's ability to evade. It does not actually give a percent chance increase to the steal skill, even if it feels like it does, because it's mitigating that evasion. While this can be nice, there are plenty of other ways that you can mitigate evasion as well. So you're really better off supporting your thief by mitigating evasion through like destroying a cloak or destroying a shield if it's not what you're trying to steal, using a rend ability, for example. A ton of different ways you can go about this, and then you can actually focus the skills on your thief towards boosting that baseline percentage, making it as good as possible through things like attack boost and brawler. So let's look at an example character to be set up as an extremely strong thief. Here I have a monk set up to do exactly that, and I'll talk about why. Monk is the best baseline thief because they're able to have both attack boost and brawler. Monks do have brawler built in innately, so you can then also equip attack boost on top of that and stack both buffs, and this is the only job in the game that can do this. They don't have the ability to wear helms, so you're not going to be able to put something like a thief hat on them to get that speed boost, but that's only going to be an increase of a couple percentage points compared to the total cumulative buff that you get from having both boosting skills on, so it's really not a big loss whatsoever. Combined with the fact that Monk has pretty decent survivability due to its ability to spam chakra on itself to keep its HP up, and you have a pretty solid character just at baseline to then start building on from there. Once you have your thief themselves set up, how you go about handling actually stealing the gear can be very different depending on what type of heist, I suppose you could say, it is that you're trying to do. If there's a random knight on the Mondalia Plains that has a rune blade before you're able to buy them in Chapter 4 and you want to just go grab that really quick, you don't have to get too fancy with it. Maybe just have a knight of your own to rend their shield or try to put them to sleep somehow to remove their evade chance. Then just have your monk walk up and try and get behind them and steal their stuff. Where things start to get more complicated, shall we say, is when you're trying to steal off of bosses. For example, Meliadul in Chapter 4. She has the Defender Sword and the Chantage accessory, both of which are very high demand items. They can both be acquired through poaching, but that's a lengthy process in and of itself, so if you just want to get a couple of these going right off the bat, then this is the way that you need to do it. Unfortunately, Meliadul is a very potent attacker and will be destroying your gear as you try to actually steal from her, to say nothing of the various different ninjas and summoners and the like that she brings to the battle with her. As such, you want to have a support team for your thief to neutralize those other threats and make sure that they stay alive long enough to get the job done. You also need to watch and make sure that you don't have any different weird issues with height, as like with many other skills in FFT, they are fairly limited by the height difference between you and your target. As such, you're going to want to hold back, let the boss come to you to a flat plane, and then start hitting them with various different debuffs. Rend speed is a great option just so that the boss can take less turns and buy you more time in between actions to actually try to steal their stuff, such as Intimidate through the Orator or the chicken spell that our good friend Beowulf brings to the table, even though you do get him fairly late, are also great options as it would reduce the chance of any sort of defensive actions like parry or sheer Hidori triggering. Units that can cast various different debuffs would be phenomenal as well. Being able to put the enemy boss's support team to sleep or turning them to stone or disabling them are all great ways to buy yourself more time, and if possible, matching their zodiac sign to yours so you can increase your chances that way as well. Finally, making sure that you have a support team to actually keep your thief alive will be massively important. Even a monk can only chakra through so much, so having maybe a samurai to put protect and shell on, or even a white mage to do the same, something that can throw items or cast white magic to keep HP up, these will all be beneficial things to have for your thieves. You could also go the mass theft route where you have an entire party of thieves that are all monks with different speed boosting gear and the like to be able to just bum rush the enemy and try and bear them down through full weight of numbers, but you're really rolling the dice on that. I prefer to go with one, maybe two that I can really buff up. And yeah, again, maybe bring Ramza and dump a bunch of Tailwind into them near the beginning of the fight so that they take a bunch of consecutive turns and their success rate is higher. That's an option as well. Once you have the actual build and the character online, there's so many different ways that you can back them up, just like you would any other character for any other role that you're filling in a team. The options are pretty endless so long as you're able to keep the enemy boss suppressed. That's the big one. And that's successfully building thieves and using steel. The moral of this story is preparation is basically the entire battle. Knowing how the steel skill works, how your calculations function, and what skills you can equip to support it, such as, again, attack boost and brawler, is key. Once you've got that going for you, it really just comes down to execution, and however you choose to do that should work out in one way or another. If you really want to get gamey with it, you can even use the autosave feature that the enhanced version of Ivalice Chronicles has to be able to reload a turn and keep trying to steal a piece of gear over and over again again until it works. That is totally an option as well. But I know that's a little gamey and some people don't like to do that, so you still can just try and tough it out the original way and you'll get there eventually. As always, if you have any particular suggestions on how you like to set up your thieves and their support team to make it even easier for you to be able to steal stuff off of some of the most potent bosses in the game to get some of the coolest gear in the game, do let people know down in the comments. This is just a general overview. There's a ton of different ways you can go about it, and we'll be getting into some of those more specific details, especially in terms of how to survive, when we do the Elmdor Genji gear video. That'll be coming very soon. If you have any further questions, please feel free to ask, and until the next time, my name has been Tom, otherwise known as Titanium Legman. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you all have a good night. Stay safe and healthy out there, and remember, be good to each other, y'all. Bye now.